They gave a hammering to Wales, then their fly half hammered his shoulder into a Welsh head. It wasn't all good news for France on the opening night of the 2025 Six Nations. Hello, amateurs. Welcome back to our Six Nations series. I'm going to be here with you throughout the championship and beyond with some fantastic guests. So hit subscribe down below to make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes. Now, this game on Friday night, we went into it with great detail, me and my mate Taff, and I'll link it up there. All the stuff that happened in this game, we had a good sort of tactical analysis of that, in particular, focusing on the Welsh, I think, and their psychology as much as anything. But today, I'm going to be looking at the French team that I think they will select to play against England at Twickenham this Saturday. Le Crunch. So some squad updates from France. Back into the squad, Damien Penaud, as if it couldn't get any harder for England. 6 tries on his last game. Let's see how many he gets at Twickenham. I'm sure it won't be 0. Also back into the squad, Tavita Tatafu, the Bayonne tight head prop, who, by all accounts, is the coming force on the tight head side of the French scrum, a youngster. He's back into the squad as well. Still missing, though, Thibaut Flamand, who is a big miss. I think he's quite influential for this French team, and I think they look much better when he's in there. So that's good news for England. Also good news, we don't know yet, but Untermack is unlikely, I think, to be available. He's very likely to get a suspension for that sending off against Wales. Last week, I wanted to see the French keep the ball alive, that power game, offload, driving behind. Did they do that? Actually, not really. I'd say the Welsh stopped them for the most part in the forwards. You know, they battered away and made ground, but the dam never broke through the middle. France didn't really go through the Welsh. They went round them. So they got Wales really narrowed down, and then with crossfield kicks or some excellent passing at times, got the tries out wide. Did they come alive on turnovers? Because that was the other thing that I was looking to see. And actually, probably not that either. When they got turnovers in their own half, they kicked the ball quite a lot. So it wasn't, I didn't see the two things that I really thought I was going to from France last week. So interesting to see whether they managed that against England, because I think those things are some of the strengths of the French game. Overall, though, last week, they barely got out of second gear, to be honest. It was a good workout, but genuinely at times it looked a little bit like a training game, especially when France were defending. Okay, but this is about this coming week and what France will pick against England. Now, I think as either the favourites or joint favourites for the tournament, France have the luxury, or I don't know whether you just earn that kind of thing, you know, where they don't have to concern themselves too much, I don't think, with the opposition they're playing. They're in a position with the style of play they've got that they can just go out and play their game every single week, and it should work against most opposition. So, any changes? Let's look at the forwards. And as I sort of said before, the forwards generally went pretty well against Wales, got everything they needed to right. However, Big Cyril, I think, is the better loosehead, and now he's had a game off the bench where he contributed to one of the tries with a flick out the back of the hand. I think he comes back in. I think he is France's number one loosehead, and as I said, with some more minutes under his belt, I think he's back in. Gross didn't do anything wrong, but I just think he's not quite as good. Second row partnership continues, as does all the back row. I don't really think anybody came off the bench to challenge these guys. None of them let themselves down by any means, but that back row of France in particular is very, very strong, and they rely on Miafu for his carrying, although Wales did stop him most of the time, actually. He didn't really have one of those big barreling runs that he's known for. So that was all quite straightforward. Let's go into the backs, where things are much more complicated, because I am going to assume that Mr. Untermack is unavailable. I think it's highly likely. So that gives, and there's lots of opportunities here. Somebody mentioned on Twitter this week that actually Dupont could potentially play 10. I don't think that'll happen. I can't imagine it would, but Le Garrec was so good off the bench and is playing so well. And in France, obviously, it's very different. You know, nines play 10 a lot, and it's seen as very interchangeable in lots of ways. However, I still don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll pick Ramos at 10, which is what they've done a lot in previous years, even though Jalabert is back in the squad. I still feel like they might want to go with the Toulouse connection there. Ramos has played a lot at 10 for Toulouse as well, so he's absolutely within his remit to do that. The only downside to that then, though, is you need a lot of rejigging in the back three. Obviously, having Penaud to come back into the squad means that in terms of player quality, they're not really losing anything. But it means that Bielbieri, I'm going to pick at fullback. He has played 5 times there for Bordeaux this year already. So he's played a lot of fullback. So that's not unusual for him. And I'm going to stick Atisogbe over to the left wing. I don't know whether they'll do it that way round or Penaud will go over to the left if they both play. But I think he was certainly looked very dangerous, got 2 tries last week as well. And the centre pairing was, without setting the world alight, they looked very solid, something that France can build on. And yeah, I mean, you know, it was France that was mostly through the forwards and then kicking the ball wide. So the centres didn't get a huge amount of ball, to be honest. So yeah, that's what I think. And that back three looks lightning quick and very, very dangerous if they get given ball. The downside is, of course, that none of them are that good in the air, so they could be targeted as well in that respect. Onto the bench, and Gross comes in there for Bai, just swapping over. And I'm going to get to Tavita Tatafu in there. I think if he's the coming force and he's fit and available, then why not? And also, I'm not a huge fan of Georges-Henri Colombe. He's just too inconsistent for me for an international tight end. So Tatafu comes in, and we expect to see a big impact from him from the bench. And everything else stays the same. Gaetan came on at fullback last week for Ramos anyway, so he can cover everything out wide. Le Garrec obviously covers 9, but then Dupont could move to 10 if necessary. They do have a lot of players that can play in a lot of different positions. I did have a little think about whether they might go 5-3 as a result of that. But with big men like Miafu and Antonio in the pack, I think they really do need those forward replacements. And I sense that England are going to try and make it quite a, I don't know, combative, hard-working game for the forwards this coming weekend. So, summing up, what do I expect to see from this French team? Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think they're in the position, being the strongest side or one of the 2 strongest sides, that they can just go out and impact their game plan on the opposition the same every week. So I think, and I'd love to see it, I want it to be a massive battle up front. I want to see these French forwards just ploughing forward, just ramming into their English opposition. And England have been so combative in the forwards as well that I think it could make for a really good battle. England are going to bring some line speed around those fringes, but with line speed against the French could cause some danger for themselves. With Antoine Dupont, he just goes backwards if he needs to. He just gives himself space and time until he sees the chink in the defensive line, and then either goes himself or puts somebody else through it or kicks over to the corner. So I expect to see very similar. And if they can't break England through the middle, then I expect them to wait until the defensive line is narrowed and kick over to the corners as well, as they did last week. It's been working very well for them. Toulouse play in a very similar fashion as well. So, yeah, if it ain't broke for France, don't fix it. All right, that's what I think. But what do you think? Do you think I've picked the right team? Do you think they're good enough to beat England at Twickenham? The Alliance Stadium? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll join you there for a friendly conversation. Give this video a big thumbs up while you're down there if you don't mind. It helps other great rugby fans like you find it, and you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next, and do not forget to get out and play.